So I'd like to talk about another right now, the right to walk down the street without having harassing catcalls. And you know, there was this famous video that went viral in October, 35 million views, of what it was like for a woman to walk down the streets of a city, and
a Jewish woman, actually,
a Jewish woman, and the kind of reception that she received from the men that she passed. And Rachel, you wrote an interesting piece on Bustle where you acknowledge that there's this kind of conflict inside about the fact that sometimes we actually do, even though we know this is wrong, we also find it flattering. And tell us a little bit about the point you were trying to make there.
Well, it was a response actually back in August, I think, to a Post column that had gone viral and was very sort of clickbaity, where the woman was saying, like, I like street harassment, it's a compliment, and everyone in the Twitter sphere exploded because it was like, how dare you say that? And I was sort of responding to, no, I know that feeling that she's talking about, but that's exactly one of the main problems with street harassment, is that objectification or any kind of oppression becomes internalized. We know that racism can become internalized, and the same thing with the objectification we experience walking down the street. The sidewalk is kind of one of the first places where we as young women learn that our body is not our own. Our part of our worth is tied up in how it looks to other people, and we become so associated with receiving that feedback constantly that we come to, yeah, like sometimes even take it as a compliment because we think that that's the measure of our self-worth, and you see stuff like eating disorders, and it's a logical conclusion.
And the sense too that that others are entitled to judge and assess you as well.
Right.
And that entitlement was very clear in the video, where there were comments directed at the woman. She didn't respond, and there was anger. You're getting a compliment, acknowledge it. Like, oh, you won't talk to me? I mean, and that's where the video became actually quite terrifying, because every woman knows that there is implied menace in a lot of these comments that are directed at you.
I think that's the hard part, because you'd like to believe that they were well meant. And hey, who doesn't want to be complimented? And yet that space between it being, you know, let's give the benefit of the doubt, very well meant, courteous, fun, kind of public space.
Well, it's kind of in a safe space, because I actually, right? In terms of responding, I think space is the most important thing. You know, if it's like a construction worker that's far away, then it's a different situation than when you're walking by and the person is literally this close to you. And
but that's when the line between what might be well intentioned and what can become, in your word, and I think it was a good one, menacing, gets
well
really
intentioned though. There was a post on a website, I forget which one. It was like, hey, you know what? All of this well-intentioned street flattery is so wonderful and so complimentary. Why aren't guys doing it to guys? Like, hey, bro, love that belt. Like, oh, those khakis look amazing on you. You know, and when you put it that way, you realize how ludicrous it sounds. So the intention is more than just like, gee, I'd like to give that nice woman a compliment. There is something darker there.
And the language isn't, as you say, isn't, oh, you look lovely today. It's not like that. And it most often has a sexual use of sexual language or sexual what the person would like to do to you. I don't think that comes anywhere near to courteous, civil, or complimentary, and we'd like to think anything. I think it's very menacing, and I think it's very demeaning, and I think it's an issue of control, because there is power in those words, and women do tense up and feel angry.